Hey guys, I am a Death Star bro, and my cousin's not here right now, and we're gonna be doing something a little bit differently. I'm gonna be handing it over to my brother Vince, and let's go.
Right. Yeah, so I'm his brother. I'm significantly older than he is. Yeah, I'm Vince. I'm a monarchy buff. I am the consul of an organization known as the Counter Revolution, a Catholic monarchist movement. There will be a link in the description, possibly up in the card. So today, my brother and I decided to do a little fun thing. There's a children's television show on Netflix called All Hail King Julien. If you've seen the Madagascar movies with Ben Stiller, those are good animated films. It's a spin-off show. It's kind of stupid, but it's entertaining at sometimes. I think I have watched it with my little brothers from time to time. But my brother and I thought it might be fun to take the British monarchy laws and the laws pertaining to that and apply them to the show and see how everything pans out. And actually pans out okay, I think. So yeah, basic rundown of the show is the Kingdom of Madagascar is run by the lemur, King Julien the 13th. He is a goofy little lemur, and he has all these hilarious adventures that little kids find funny. But some of the major characters for our purposes, we have Julien the 13th, who is the title character, King of Madagascar. He's the main character show in most of it. He is the nephew of King Julien the 12th, presumably, because all the kings are named Julien. That's one thing the show makes clear is all of the kings of Madagascar have been named Julien. And there have been 13 of them. So his predecessor was named King Julien the 12th, and he was his uncle. He's referred to as Uncle King Julien. King Julien's mother, who shows up a couple times during the show, is Princess Juliana. She was exiled for some time. They thought she was dead, but she comes back. She's kind of a jerk. But yeah, she's there. There's a character called Mort, who, if you've seen the Madagascar films, you'll remember him. He is small and annoying, and in one episode, he is adopted. So in one episode, in one possible scenario, he is important. And then the rest of the Juliens 1 through 11. It's important to know all of the Juliens have been named Julien. All of the kings have been Julien. Julien and king, it's like Caesar and king. So pretty much going all the way back from Julien the 12th on back, they're all called Julien, and that's something important to remember. Right, so now I want to explain the British succession laws really quickly. It gets very nuanced and complicated, but the gist of it is essentially, so you have the reigning monarch, and it's important to look at it like a family tree, going all the way back to a guy named William the Conqueror, who conquered England in the 1000s. I think it was, I should know this date, but it's escaping me right now. He conquered England and all his descendants. So Queen Elizabeth is, in a weird, convoluted way because of politics, she is his descendant, Queen Elizabeth of England. So basically the way it works is you have this family tree, and the crown is sitting on someone's head. When that person dies, if they have a son, then it goes to them. If they do not have a son, if they have a daughter, then it will go to the daughter. But only if they do not have a son. So if they have a son, and then a daughter, and then a son, and the older son dies before his father dies, then it will go to his younger brother, not his younger sister. They changed that recently, but that was how it was done for a long time. And then if a king dies and he has no children, the principle the crown skips back a generation. So it goes to his father, who's already dead, and then from there it goes to his next youngest son. And if he only had one son, it goes to his father, and so on and so on and so on. Hopefully Oliver will be able to make some nice little helpful diagrams for you guys to explain all this. There's some cool videos that kind of explain how this works in more detail. We can put some links in the description for you. Right, so some important differences to remember between Britain and Madagascar. The first one is that Madagascar is an absolute monarchy. There is no parliament. There is not even any indication of a prime minister. The only character who seems to have an official role There's two official roles outside of the king, and that is advisor and captain of the Ringtail Guard. The Ringtail Guard is their funny name for, like, I guess, bodyguard slash chief military person slash, well, their ninja lady assassin. And then the official advisor is the beloved character Maurice. So, we're going to do two scenarios. The first one is more of an explanatory one. I'm going to explain why King Julien XIII is king when his uncle abdicates the throne. So the first episode of the show is set King Julien XII, who is rather evil, decides that to fulfill a prophecy that the king must be killed, for him to survive that prophecy, he decides that he is going to abdicate on the day that it's supposed to happen and let his idiot nephew, King Julien XIII, be eaten by the lions. Fusa lions, whatever, I don't know what they're called. And so he abdicates, and King Julien XIII becomes king. Now, why does that work? Why is that okay? So, I have a diagram here. Oliver will hopefully be posting a thing on that. So you have King Julien XII, right? So King Julien XII, presumably speaking based on the show, he has one sibling, Juliana. So Juliana is his sister and King Julian's mother. He has no children, based on the show. It doesn't even say that he has a wife. So, let's go back to that monarchy law. So, King Julien XII abdicates, which is pretty much the same thing in legal terms as death. It then jumps back to King Julien XI, his father. So the crown jumps back. Now it's legally speaking very similar to when King Julien XII died in the first place, except Julien the 12th is out of the picture. So now his only surviving child is Juliana. The problem with Juliana is dead, presumably. She is presumed dead at this point. However, Juliana does have a son by the name of Julien, King Julien XIII. So it goes to her. She's already dead. So it goes down to Julien XIII. And he becomes the king. And he actually survives the prophecy because it was a misinterpreted prophecy. Whatever. It's a little kid show. It's kind of dumb. Right. So there's that situation. That's why that is happening. So the second one, this is more of a situational hypothesis. If King Julien XIII were to die at any point in the show, so King Julien XIII is never shown to have a wife or children of any kind, except one time, which we'll go into in a little bit. So, if he were to die, let's look at this. Let's look at this again. So we have Julien XIII. So Julien XII, we're going to assume that he is barred from succession. He's been exiled numerous times, so we're going to assume that he's been barred from succession. And then Julian's mother is a little tricky because she does come back later. So there could even be people who say that Julien XIII is not the rightful monarch as long as his mother is alive. However, his mother does not seem particularly interested in the throne, so she would probably abdicate anyway. So, if Julien XIII were to die with no children, what you'd have is it would go back to his mother. It would then, because she's abdicated or dead or whatever, it would then go back to her father, Julien XI. Julien XI, mind you, has two abdicated children, presumably that are dead. They're barred from succession. So, we now go back to Julien XI's father, Julien X, whenever that happened. Presumably Julien X is already dead, because it would have been a long time ago. Julien X, this is where we get into speculation, because none of these things are contingent on each other. King Julien X may have only had one child, he may have had many children, he may have had what have you. So we're going to pretend that he had a son. We're going to pretend he had another son. We'll call him Ralph. Julien X. We're going to call his other son Ralph. So Ralph may or may not be dead. Let's pretend for our purposes that he's dead, because he's on the same level as Julien the 11th, who is already dead. So decently safe bet that he's already dead, considering that Julien the 12th is pretty old by the time the show starts. So it's presumable that his uncle would be dead already. So let's say Ralph had a son by the name of what have we? Julien. So Julien would be the same age as Julien the 12th and Juliana. He would be probably in whatever the lemur version of his 60s is at this point. So there's a pretty good chance he's alive. He might not be. But let's just say he is. So that makes him the rightful king. So just to recap, if Julien the 13th dies, it goes back to his mother Juliana, who is abdicated and legally dead, if you will. From Juliana, it goes back to Julien the 11th, who is dead. Then goes back to Julien the 10th, also dead, but he has another son. So it would go down to Ralph, also dead. From Ralph, it would go to his son, Julien the 14th, the king of Madagascar. And that's just conjecture. The show says none of that. Now, there is one episode where this changes. In one episode, King Julien has another crazy fit and decides to adopt a child. Little does he know that he has adopted Mort, pretending to be another lemur child. But nevertheless, he legally adopts Mort. Now, British monarchy laws, personally, I am not 100% aware of what they say on adopted children. There's never been an instance of that. The British monarchs have never adopted. It says that illegitimate children may not ascend to the throne, but adopted children are legitimized by their very adoption. So, legally speaking anyway, Mort is the legal son of King Julien. However, he does not have any royal blood. This would probably result in a little bit of a conflict. So if Julien were to die during that episode while he had adopted Mort, or Prince Falcon as he is legally known in that episode, if he were to die in the middle of that, what you would inevitably end up with is actually a split in Madagascar. There would be some who would say that the adoption of Prince Falcon was legitimate and that Prince Falcon is the true heir, and they would probably be called the Falconists. And there would be others who say that because he is not of noble birth and he is merely adopted, he is barred from succession. Thus, they would support King Julien the 14th, likely known as the Julianists. Ladies and gentlemen, this is how civil wars started from pretty much the year 500 AD up until the 1700s. There's still, even today, amongst monarchists, a lot of these divisions. In Spain, I think, there's the Carlists and others. I don't remember what the other types are called. In France, the Legitimists and the Orleanists, or I don't know exactly what the terms are. But yeah, so you would have this rival faction. Does it matter? It doesn't really matter who would win, because it's a fictional TV show. There's some humor for you. But yeah, so there you go. That's my monarchy nerdiness. I know you're all pretty big nerds, but that's some classical nerdiness for you. That's what people used to be nerds about. This monarchic succession. So have fun waving your Falconist or Julianist banners and deciding whose side you're on, possibly fighting to the death for whoever your true king is, whether you serve King Falcon the First or Julien the 14th. So I will now give it back to my brother. Y'all have a good day.
Okay, thank you, Vince. So yeah. By the way, the other Death Star bro, my cousin, will be posting a video shortly. He couldn't figure out the sound, so he's gonna have to record the sound later. but hopefully that will be coming out soon. And until then, goodbye.